She never asked for much. That was the thing about her. In a world full of people who demanded and declared and performed their worth loudly, she simply existed, steady, certain, present. She had been his Luna for 4 years. 4 years of standing beside him at every gathering, every ceremony, every crisis that the pack threw at their feet. She knew the names of every elder, every pup, every grievance that had ever been brought to the throne room. She kept records in a small leather notebook she carried in her coat pocket. She remembered birthdays. She settled disputes before they became feuds. She did all of this without being asked, without expecting credit, without ever placing her name anywhere near the acknowledgement. His name was Kale, Alpha King of the Northstone Pack, which stretched across 3 territories and was held together by a combination of his authority and, though he would not have admitted it then, her quiet management of everything his authority could not reach. Her name was Sarah. He used to say it like it cost him nothing. Sarah. The way you say the name of something you are certain will always be there. The way you say the sun. The way you say home. She had loved him in the specific way that careful people love. Slowly, completely, without announcement. She had not fallen for the title or the territory, or the way a room rearranged itself when he walked in. She had fallen for the version of him she saw at 2 in the morning, sitting at his desk with his sleeves rolled up, struggling with decisions that kept him awake, and letting her bring him tea without pretending he did not need it. That version of him was real. She held on to that. What she did not hold on to, what she could not have held on to, because it happened before she understood what was happening, was him. Her name was Lyra. Sarah did not know exactly when Kale had met her. She knew only the outline of it, a visiting delegation from the Eastern Crest, a summit that lasted 3 days, a woman who arrived with the kind of beauty that makes men forget that beauty is not a character trait. Sarah had not attended that summit. There had been a sickness moving through the pack's younger children, and she had stayed behind to help manage the healers and calm the families. She had stayed behind because the pack needed her. He had gone and found something he decided he wanted more. The first sign was not dramatic. Signs never are, in real life. The first sign was a Tuesday in late autumn, when she reached for his hand at dinner, and he did not take it. Not a refusal, just an absence. His hand was on the table, and then it was not. He reached for his cup instead. She noticed. She said nothing. She told herself it was a long week. She told herself leadership was heavy, and he carried it differently on different days. She told herself many things in the weeks that followed. She was very good at it. The second sign was the throne room. He began holding meetings without telling her. Not secretly, there was no conspiracy about it. He simply stopped informing her, the way you stop informing a person when you have quietly reclassified them in your mind. She would find out afterward, from an elder who assumed she already knew, or from the agenda notes left on the desk. She started reading the notes more carefully. She started watching him more carefully. She did not like what the watching showed her. There was a shift in him that she could not name, only feel. The way you feel the temperature of a room change before anyone has opened a window. She asked him once, directly, quietly, in the bedroom with the door closed. She asked if there was something she needed to know. He looked at her for a moment, with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Not guilt, exactly, but the shadow of it. The shape guilt makes before a person has decided to admit it. He said no. She believed him, because she wanted to. And because wanting to believe someone you love is one of the oldest human weaknesses there is. The formal pack assembly was held on the first Friday of December. She dressed carefully that morning. She wore the deep blue that he had once told her made her look like the kind of person who could hold a kingdom together. She pinned her hair. She carried her leather notebook. She arrived early, as she always did, and she stood near the front, because that was where she had always stood. She stood there while he walked to the center of the room. She stood there while he spoke. She stood there while he said her name, her full name, Luna Seraphine, in the particular formal tone that pack law required for official declarations. And then she stood there while he said the words that unmade everything. He renounced the bond. Publicly, formally, irreversibly by pack tradition. He named Lyra as his chosen. He used language about the kingdom's future, and the strength of new alliances, and the requirements of leadership. He spoke for 3 minutes. Every word was correct, measured, rehearsed. Not one of them was the truth. The room was very quiet. Sarah did not move for what felt like a long time but was probably only a few seconds. She was aware of the faces around her, the elders, the pack members she knew by name and birthday and private sorrow. She was aware of the notebook in her hand. She was aware of the specific physical sensation of being unmade in public, which is different from being unmade in private. Private grief has the mercy of walls. Public grief has nowhere to go. She did not cry. She closed the notebook. She put it under her arm. She turned and walked out of the room with the same steadiness she had brought into it, and she did not look back at him, not because she was performing strength, but because she genuinely could not afford to. She left the pack house that afternoon. She left the territory by nightfall. She did not tell anyone where she was going, because she did not know. She drove for 6 hours and stopped in a city she had visited once, years ago, that had seemed like the kind of place where a person could become anonymous without trying too hard. She rented a room. She sat in it for 3 days without speaking to anyone. On the 4th day, she went outside and bought coffee and walked around the block twice and then went back inside. On the 7th day, she applied for a job. She did not rebuild dramatically. She rebuilt the way most people do, incrementally, imperfectly, in increments so small they were invisible, until the day she looked up and realized that she had built something real. She got the job, then a better job, then a small apartment with a window that let in enough morning light that she had started to look forward to waking up, which was not something she had expected to feel again so soon. She made friends who did not know anything about packs or territories or the specific weight of being a Luna. They knew her as Sarah, who was good at her job and brought food to the office on Fridays and had a laugh that arrived without warning and filled the room. She did not forgive him. She did not rage at him either. She simply placed him, carefully, deliberately, in the category of things that had happened to her that she did not allow to define her. It took time. It was not clean, but it worked. Meanwhile, the kingdom fell apart slowly. Not all at once. Nothing that has been well built falls apart all at once, but the cracks appeared in exactly the places she had always quietly managed. The alliance with the Southern Ridge frayed within 8 months. A dispute over territory boundaries that she had been monitoring and managing through a relationship she had built with the Ridge elder's wife over 3 years of small gestures and remembered details. Without her, there was no one who knew that the right call was a personal letter, not a formal negotiation. Cale sent a formal negotiation. The alliance cooled. The pack's younger families began leaving for other territories. Again, not dramatically, not in protest. They simply left, one by one, the way people leave places that no longer feel cared for. Sarah had made those families feel cared for. She had done it invisibly enough that no one understood what was missing, until it was gone. Lyra left in the 13th month. Cale would later understand that the bond, the real one, the one that could not be transferred or replaced or announced into existence at a formal assembly, had never moved. It had simply waited, and while it waited, it rotted from neglect. Lyra was not wrong for leaving. She had been brought into something that was never genuinely hers to have. That was his responsibility, not hers. He began looking for Sarah in the 3rd year. It took him 14 months to find her. He did not hire investigators or use pack resources. He looked the way a man looks when he is not sure he has the right to find someone, quietly, carefully, with the particular shame of knowing that the search itself might be unwelcome. He followed the small trails she had not thought to hide, because she had not imagined he would come looking. A name in a professional directory, a city, a neighborhood. He found her on a Tuesday morning in late October. She was buying coffee from a cart on the corner near her office, and she was wearing a coat he had never seen. Dark green, practical, with the collar turned up against the cold, and she was laughing at something the man behind the cart had said. Her head was back. The laugh was real. He stood on the pavement across the street and watched her be fine. He had expected ruins. He had been preparing, for 4 years, for a version of her that would reflect back to him the damage he had done, something diminished, something still waiting in pain. What he saw instead was a woman who had taken the damage and built something out of it that had nothing to do with him. That was the thing that broke him open, not her sadness, her completeness. He crossed the street. She saw him when he was about 10 feet away. Her face did not change dramatically. No sharp intake of breath, no tears, no dramatic stillness. She simply looked at him the way you look at something you once considered very important and have since learned to live without. She said, "Kale." Not a question. Not an accusation, just his name, said the same way you say the name of a place you used to live. He asked if she had a few minutes. She said yes, and they walked to a bench nearby, and she sat down and held her coffee with both hands and waited for him to speak. He spoke for a long time. He said all the things he had rehearsed. He said things he had not rehearsed. He told her that he understood, now, what he had not understood then, that leadership without her was not leadership, it was performance. That the thing he had mistaken for ambition had been fear. That choosing Lyra had not been love, it had been the specific cowardice of a man who was afraid of how completely he needed someone, and had decided it was safer to need someone he needed less. He told her the pack was smaller now. He told her the alliances were in poor shape. He told her he was not saying that so she would feel responsible. He wanted her to understand that he understood the architecture of what she had built, and how much of it had been invisible until it was gone. He told her he was sorry. Not with elegance. With the stumbling, plain, imperfect reality of a man who had been practicing this sentence for years, and still could not make it sound like enough. Because it wasn't enough, and he knew it, and he said that too. She listened to all of it without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a while. She looked at the street. She held her coffee. A bus went past. Someone's dog pulled at a leash on the opposite pavement. Then she said, "I know." 2 words, quiet, even, without performance. They contained everything, and returned nothing to him, as forgiveness. Because forgiveness was not what those 2 words were about. They were about something quieter and more permanent. Recognition. She recognized that he had arrived at the understanding she had always suspected he was capable of. She simply recognized it from a very safe distance. He did not leave the city after that. He stayed, not in her life, not close to her, but present in the city, the way a person is present when they are trying to demonstrate something over time, rather than announce it in a single meeting. He found work. He kept his distance. He made himself smaller than he had ever allowed himself to be. And he did it without communicating the effort to her, because communicating the effort would have been another way of making it about him. She noticed. She was not waiting for him. She had not been waiting for him. But she noticed that he was there, and she noticed, carefully, skeptically, with the measured attention of someone who has already paid a very high price for trusting too easily, that he was different. Not stated differently, actually different. In the texture of his daily behavior, in the way he moved through the world without expectation, in the specific patience of a man who has learned to be patient because he understands he has no right to demand anything else. One evening in February she called him. She did not call him because she had forgiven him. She did not call him because the love had returned. It had never fully left, which was its own complicated truth she had made peace with. She called him because she had decided that the question she had been living with since that Tuesday in October deserved an honest answer, and the only way to get an honest answer was to let him back close enough for her to see one. She asked if he wanted to get dinner. He said yes. They ate at a small restaurant 3 blocks from her apartment. They talked for 2 hours, not about the past, not about the pack, not about Lyra or the bond or the December assembly. They talk the way 2 people talk when they are trying to find out if what they have in common is still enough to build something on. At the end of the evening, walking back toward her street, he reached for her hand. She let him take it. She did not say it was going to be fine. She did not say she trusted him again. She didn't. Not fully. Not yet. What she said, quietly, looking straight ahead at the lit street, was, "Don't make me regret this." He did not answer. He just held her hand more carefully. And that, not the declaration, not the apology, not the years of quiet waiting. That was the beginning of something real.